Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today I'm dipping back into the wonderful world of Phyrexian Dreadnought. A lot of BANT Dreadnought lists have been doing pretty well since Doorkeeper Thrull has been released. So I thought I'd dip back in and have a look at how they've sort of refined the deck lists over time. There's basically two main schools of thought around the BANT Dreadnought decks that you see at the moment. It's either whether you play the two Murktides or not, or you just have more spells to interact with your opponent. I quite like the Murktide because having just a creature that's good on its own that we can do stuff with makes a lot of sense. Uro obviously requires a little bit of setup. Dreadnought requires quite a lot of setup. So just having a flat out good card that can at least pitch to Force of Will seems like a good place to be. So the way this deck operates is we have a Doorkeeper Thrull in play or a Dress Down, and then we cast Phyrexian Dreadnought, and then we have a 12/12 with no downside, and it's a trampler. And it wins the game very quickly. We protect that with Daze and Force of Will. So we're kind of like a tempo deck in some respects, except we go big with our creatures. We also do have Stifle, which can pick off annoying things our opponent has, as well as making our Dreadnought be a threat that gets to stick around and ignore its come into play ability. Generally, Dress Down and Doorkeeper Thrull are better because, you know, you're left with something. So this cantrips, and then this is a creature that's still in play. And some decks get shut down a little bit by Doorkeeper Thrull. Things like Doomsday can't win with Thassa's Oracle. That sort of jazz. So that's what we're trying to do. We've got 8 cantrips to make that happen. Always a good place to be when you're in blue. That's the reason to be blue a lot of the time. We've also got our 8 counter spells, like I mentioned before, to keep our tempo plan up. We've got 4 Swords of Plowshares. Why not play the cleanest, best removal in the format? Then we've got the backup plan of 4 Uros. We have 1 life from the Loam. We can Wasteland lock our opponent, which is a thing I also love to do. And dredging this just gives us Uro at some point as well. So we have some inevitability there. Mana base wise, like I said, we've got the Wastelands. We have ourselves 1 basic island, 1 Meticulous Archive, bunch of fetch lands, and then we have some jewels. So we've got 3 Trops because we need blue, blue, green, green for Uro, but we're primarily a blue-white deck. So we have the 2 Tundras, and that's why we have the Meticulous Archive. So effectively 3 Tundras, and we have 1 Savannah in case we do need that different spread of mana. We're not trying to play that much in the way of green. It's pretty much just these cards. Sideboard-wise, we do have a Veil of Summer that we can bring in, which is a very good thing to be in green for. Then we've got ourselves Prismatic Ending for more removal, which again makes having the additional colour handy. We've got Force of Negations for some combo decks that we need to stop. Blue Elemental Blast for all these scary red decks with all their Blood Moons and stuff like that can shut us off of all of our colours. With our basic island, we get to potentially blow that up with a Blue Blast. Narset to stop opponents drawing a bunch of cards, some Graveyard Hate of varying kinds, and some Null Rods to shut down artifacts. I should also mention that Doorkeeper Thrull and Dress Down will stop the trigger of Uro, so it comes into play just as a guy. So we can just go 2 mana and then make the Uro. Again, that is a little bit of setup, but it's the same amount of setup as a Dreadnought. We can stifle the enter the battlefield trigger so it doesn't die if we haven't escaped it. So we can do similar stuff like that, but this costs 4 mana to do this stifle. So usually, if we're going to do an Uro this way, we're going to want to do it off of the Doorkeeper Thrull or the Dress Down. Alright, that's the deck. I've played some BANT Dreadnought before, and I quite liked how it felt, and I think this newer build, with a few little tweaks here and there, feels pretty strong. Like I said, we're testing out the 2 Murktides instead of 2 Prismatic Endings in the main. That's usually the swap that people like to make. Alright, remember to like and subscribe, and let's start Dreadnoughting. We are on the play. We have Island Ponder, which is not a bad way to start the game off, so I think I will keep this one. It is a bit annoying that we don't have part of our sort of Dreadnought package, and we will be trying to find things to put into our graveyard, but we have a spare Murktide Regent that we can pitch to Force of Will, and we will have to fetch our basic, but we're not going to do anything if we don't find another land anyway, so we may as well lean into it and keep this hand and try and ponder whilst having a non-wastelandable land. It does mean our opponent will be able to take us off colours if they have a wasteland later on, but at least we'll be able to cast our cantrips. Basic Island and Ponder, the classic start. We have another land here. I do like the Ponder as well, so I think we'll bury the Force and put the Ponder on top and then put this Trop. So we're 2/3 of the way to the first half of Uro. We just need to find another mana source so we can put it into play and then start working towards bringing it back and hopefully taking over a game that way. Tropical Island from our opponent and a Ponder. So similar things are afoot from both sides of the table. But our opponent could obviously be, you know, Bug Beans, Leyline Control deck, Omnitail. There's a lot of options. Another Ponder that we knew was on top. So we know we have a Force of Will. I'm not massively excited by that Force of Will. A Tundra is very much what I want to see. So we can draw the Force of Will this turn in case we need to fight over some kind of Omnitel plan. So I think we bury the Plow, then the Tundra, because we've already played our land for turn, and then we put this into our hand. I'm not like super excited about this, but the option of having 2 Force of Wills if our opponent is on a combo deck is kind of nice, and then if it's not, then later on we get to throw them back into the deck with a Brainstorm or something. Hedge Maze. This doesn't really give us more information, but it does tell us that our opponent is a little bit deeper onto blue-green than maybe. Okay, Spell Pierce. That could be some sort of Delver strategy, like the Beanstalk Delver deck with Hooting Mandrills, or it could mean they're more into like a combo deck, and this is a card that's going to protect their combo. But let's find out. So this arrow is not going to put in an extra land on the way through, but that's okay. It's going to draw us a card, and we just need another green source and a couple cards in the graveyard, and then we get to make our Uro. So if we have to Force of Will something and then find a fetch land, that puts us into Uro Town. There isn't up the Beanstalk. This is the thing that I will very much be fighting over. It's best to fight over this now rather than try and fight over anything when it's in play, because then they get Force of Wills. There is a Daze. That is an awkward exchange for us, for sure. Am I just going to fire this off now? I think so, and we're going to hope that we can recoup the lost cards with the Uro. So our opponent's got another Daze. They're very far behind in terms of playing to the board. Alright, it's a Force of Will. But that's a Force of Will that isn't being used while Up the Beanstalk is in play, so that stops them from drawing a card off of that Beanstalk. Alright. We'd love to find a green source. We put enough cards in our graveyard for an Uro. Hook me up deck. Ponder. That doesn't do it, unfortunately. But we can still ponder and try and get towards that extra land drop we need. The Flooded Strand does exactly that. We do have to wait a turn before we can put the Uro in. So now our opponent knows we have an Uro next turn because we've got this land. We can go and get only green, blue, or green, white lands because we do need the second green here. So it's not like we can get our Meticulous Archive and get a little bit deeper into our deck. That would take us off of being able to cast the Uro next turn. I'm not sure exactly what flavour of Up the Beanstalk deck is, but I think seeing Daze and Spell Pierce does make you think we're looking at like Hooting Mandrills, Murktide Regent, that sort of jam. Or we could be looking at Bug Beans, now that we've seen the Underground Sea. We know the top card of our library is Dress Down. I don't particularly want to draw the Dress Down, so I'm going to crack this now. They've got a Stifle. They've got a Stifle. Okay, so I think we just want another tropical island here. Or do we want a second white source? I'll take a second white source, actually. We do have 2 white spells that we might want to cast in one turn. A Wasteland. This allows us to play around Daze, so I will play this out. Let's escape this. Green, green, blue, blue. What are we getting rid of here? Doesn't particularly matter too much. We have Life from the Loam in our deck, but it's only a 1 of. We also have some Murktide Regents in our deck. So let's leave some instants and sorcery in there for the Murktide Regent. What are we going to draw here? We can put in a Bowmasters and get a free ping here, if that's the thing they're interested in. But Uro lines up relatively well against Bowmasters. Shoulder's Edict. Okay, we will take out their black source and hope that does some job of keeping them at bay. We're not a million miles away from firing this Uro again, which is hopefully how we're going to grind this game out. If our opponent's on bug, they're going to not have that many permanent answers to the Uro. They're going to have to keep hitting it again and again, unless they've got anything like a Cling to Dust in their deck. We haven't shown them any of our like Dreadnought related things, so we might just look like a BANT control deck from here, in terms of what they've seen. So they might not be expecting their like Pernicious Deeds out of the sideboard to be that useful. There is a Murktide Regent. That is not a thing I care about right now. The fact that it cantrips is the thing I care about. Our opponent's got 4 cards in hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. So not enough yet. I will play this one out because it represents high cast Force of Will. And it means you can play things around Daze a little more easier. So we will plow this. We've got a few bites of the cherry as well. Our opponent's deck doesn't run many win conditions if they are like standard Bug Beans. Let's try and nail this now. Alright, it's just gone. I didn't expect them to protect that. So we're still 1 card shy of making Uro. This means that we get to make the Uro. So I think we'll go and get a Meticulous Archive here. Get a tiny bit of selection going. A Ponder. Ponder is an above average draw. I'll put that on top. And I'll cast this. So blue, green, green, blue. We don't really have a choice of what we're exiling here because we have to get rid of them all. But we got ourselves an Uro. We're going to see another removal spell. But we're about to draw this Ponder, so we can fire that off if that's the thing we want to do. Murderous Cut, a Fatal Push. Say no to this. Our opponent doesn't have black mana, so I'm going to fire this off now because we don't need to plow anything just yet. I don't hate this selection of cards. So I think we go Dreadnought, then the Dress Down, and then the Daze. So next turn we can play the Dress Down and the Dreadnought in the same turn because we get the cantrip off of the Dress Down. Mystic Sanctuary. What are they getting back here? Presumably a removal, or it could be a Ponder though, if they feel they're in that situation. They are just getting a removal spell. This makes the Dress Down play a little bit less exciting to me. A Murktide Regent, we don't care about that. It's interesting they didn't want to play that and then Mystic Sanctuary afterwards. I guess they wanted to draw the Edict straight up. So I think I'm just going to plow now. I'll use the Meticulous Archive because that's the one I'd most like to Daze back. Alright, so we will try and get some value out of this Daze. Our opponent wants to fight over this. It's not the end of the world. We've already got the cantrip here. If they trade 1 for 1, then, you know, we're both kind of drawing a bunch of cards. And we're about to have another go at Uro in the very near future. They're not going to Shoulder's Edict this now, I don't think. Because that would just play into Daze too easily. Okay, maybe they will. Let's bounce our Surveil land. This helps us fuel our Uro, gives us deeper into our deck. That was an incredible exchange for us. Wow. Okay, we got the use out of a Daze on like turn 8. That was very unexpected. We do have to crack 3 times with this Dreadnought. This Meticulous Archive, we can just make sure we mill the card, and that will give us the Uro if we want it. Alright, so we're going to attack first and see what shakes loose. Because if this dies for some reason, like Fatal Push or whatever, or another Edict, then we don't have to bin the card off Meticulous Archive if it's good. And we definitely want to put the Uro in. Right, we're just in. Our opponent's not going to have like hard removal for multiple guys here. So I think I am encouraged. I do not think I want this now. We're very unlikely to get use out of another one. So green, green, blue, blue. This is the 3rd time we're casting an Uro. So we're getting a lot of cards out of this Uro. Is this just going to be a hard cast Force of Will that draws a card? It is. Unfortunate, but we still have this Phyrexian Dreadnought. We can play our Dreadnought just to put it to the graveyard if we need another card for Uro at some point. But we're going to have to see what our opponent is up to if we need to do that, because at present they are under the gun. So we've seen 1 Fatal Push and 1 Shoulder's Edict. They usually run 4 removal spells like that. So some combination of Edicts, Murderous Cuts, and Fatal Pushes. There is a little bit of flexibility. Some people run a little bit more. That's roughly what we're looking at. And they've seen nearly half their deck. So it's not out of the question they find another one. Just continue this merry dance where we hope that our Uro can outcard advantage their Beanstalk. Which is not always the case. But it is possible. So they're playing in fear of Daze, I think. I felt like a potential Murderous Cut being cast. Or they were thinking about a Murktide and realised they don't want to do it into a Daze. But if they'd have just waited until their turn to play the Shoulder's Edict, I think they would have been in a much better spot, rather than trying to be mana efficient at end of turn. I don't think this game is about being mana efficient. It's about having the last thing standing. Murderous Cut. Alright, there it is. Sure, why not have a cantrip and removal spell? That seems good. There's a Wasteland. Are they going to use it? They probably don't have Loam, but they might have something like Witherbloom Command to get back a Wasteland once or twice. Alright, we just have a hard cast Force of Will here. We don't have a second green for the purposes of Uro, which is definitely a consideration with this deck that can be a little bit awkward for us. Witherbloom Command. This is not one we want to resolve, I don't think. We don't want them to Wasteland our other green source. That makes it incredibly difficult to ever cast this Uro. Sure. Another Murktide Regent. We have another source to Plowshares. So if we can find a fetch land, we can put an Uro into play this turn. A Stifle. That's not the one we wanted. I think we fire this off now. Alright, that's 3 Murktides exiled now. So they have 1 Murktide left in there. Oh no, 1, 2, 3, 4. They have no Murktides left, so they have to win with just Orcish Bowmasters. That's pretty good news for us. They might have an Uro. You sometimes see single Uros. We could have put the Dreadnought in last turn. Maybe that would have been a better play, but yeah, if we'd have put in the Dreadnought last turn, that would have been better. But it is a little bit of a squiffy one in terms of spells our opponent has. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I would rather Brainstorm and try and get this Uro into play. That feels like the better route out of this game. Is this going to be a Bowmasters? They've been sitting on this whole time. Alright. You can get some Bowmasters going. 12-12 is certainly bigger than the 4-4 they're going to have. I like Doorkeeper Thrull. A little bit late, but it's here. We also have this Tropical Island. So if we Doorkeeper Thrull, Stifle... if we want to play around... We can't play around their stuff here. I think we're going to put this and this back. A little bit annoyed about this one. But we're going to try and put 24 power in play. Or 25 power. So let's try this. Let's play the Thrull. Awkward timing for sure. Let's try a Dreadnought. A removal spell here is a bit of a blowout. Alright. I didn't have one. Let's try another one. This can get dazed. But I think just making sure we have the maximum power in play is a good place to be. Because our opponent with 2 Beanstalks will eventually draw enough of their deck to wreck us. Like, we've drawn as many cards as our opponent in this game. We've had a lot of access to Uro draws this game. So we're keeping parity with the Beanstalks, but now they've got 2, it becomes a little bit more challenging. Now they've got 3, it becomes a bit more challenging. But I think they might only have 1 removal spell left in their deck. They probably have... Well, they might have some kind of bounce spell. We've done a reasonable job of running our opponent out of threats. And now we get to crash very, very hard. We have a Stifle. We could have put the Trop so we got the Uro back. But I'm suspicious of weird things happening. And I think this is where I want to be damage-wise. So if we can just get this going. Alright, so we're going to trample over for a bunch here. So that's what, 21 damage I think we're going to do? Alright, our opponent's at 2. Facing down, 24 power of trample, and a 1-2 flyer. What are you going to do with this Pluto Delta? Like, we could stifle that, but I don't think that's where we want to be. I think I'd rather stifle some other problem card, like a Wasteland, which keeps us off of Uro, for example. Would be kind of annoying. If they do find a way out of this, we want to be able to at least interact with that. If they do have a main deck Pernicious Deed, I would like to not get blown out by that. Lorien Revealed. Okay, our opponent's drawing lots of cards. We don't really care about that. We just want them to not have very specific cards. So we need to have something like 2 Murderous Cuts here. Or 2 Fatal Pushes here. It seems like a bit of a tall order. Alright. Game 1. To us. Let's have a look at our sideboard. This feels like a matchup where the Narset Part of Veils look very strong. Prismatic Ending hits beans, so I like those. The Veil of Summer is reasonable, but they're not doing that much with their black stuff, so I'm not super on this, but it is something to consider. I like Force of Negation for countering the beans. If our opponent's boarding into their own Uros, Surgical Extraction is an option, but I don't know if they're doing that. Unlicensed Hearse can just keep their graveyard in check, but this just eats it to Witherbloom Command quite a lot and doesn't give us that much value. I think we're better off just trying to trade our removal spells effectively. So I don't like Daze, especially not on the draw. So these can come out, and that gives us 62 cards. So we've got to find a couple of things to trim. This is the matchup where we want access to our ponders, I reckon. Pernicious Deed is something we do have to consider. How much do we want these Force of Negations is the real question. Like, what are we doing with them? Countering beans is pretty important. So I think we probably need to keep these around. I do like having a Wasteland lock against our opponent here. Uro is the only thing that kept us in that game. I do like Murktides as well. I think we need threat density. Like, something has to give here. And is it going to be... Like, how useful is Stifle against our opponent? Stifling Pernicious Deed feels important, which means we might just be looking at trimming ponders. As weird as that is. Or we could trim... Like, there is an argument for trimming Brainstorms so that we don't get hit by the Orcish Bowmasters as hard. But I think we're just going to trim some ponders here. But we want the endings to answer Bowmasters and the Beanstalk. Those feel like important things to do. And we might be able to catch out a Pernicious Deed. Our opponent is going to play around Stifle when it comes to Pernicious Deed for sure. I do like having the Wasteland lock here. I think I will keep this one. We do also have some ponder actions, so we can try and find a second land in case things go awry. Our opponent not fetching around Stifle. Another trop is quite nice to see here. We'll fire off this ponder. Another Wasteland. I don't hate that. I do like all these other cards as well. So I think we're going to put Wasteland on the bottom, then the Narset, and we'll put the Force of Will into hand. We're going to get a Surveil land here. They are. It's a hedge maze. Let's see what you got, opponent. Is it a Beanstalk that we have to fight over? It could well be. A Carpet of Flowers. That is very problematic for our Wasteland plan. I think it's a Brainstorm that goes here. We don't want to get rid of our Uro because we might need that to pull back in. This Carpet could well just beat us on its own. Okay, so our Loam lock looks pretty terrible now. Not a fan of this anymore. So now our opponent has 2 mana. They can make green mana here and play... Okay, it's black mana. An Orcish Bowmasters. Sure. Yep, that's a tough turn cycle for us right there. A very tough turn cycle. And Narset, like, going after their lands now does not feel like how I want to play this game. So we can Uro and grow their guy, which doesn't feel spectacular. We can play a Narset. It's not going to be long for this world if we do play it. Our opponent doesn't have the most cards in hand, though. Do I want to Uro here and just get that going? I think so. I'd rather play our Narset in a way where we can defend it. And that is certainly not where we are right now. So we have the Prismatic Ending, which can end the Orc. But just not yet. Because we haven't got any white mana. Yeah, it's weird. We're a blue-white deck that has a blue-blue, green-green card in it. And we do have to pay for those sins sometimes. Surprised we don't have Carpet Flowers in our own deck. Ugh. That is not a nice one. So we don't have the Uro to rely on anymore. But we do have Murktide, so I'm glad we've got those as a win condition. Whereas if we were playing the build that had Prismatic Endings and stuff, that would feel a lot worse. If they had those in the main deck instead of the 2 Murktides. So I like the additional threats we have. But boy howdy, do I not like our spot. If our opponent finds a Beanstalk or their own Narset, it's probably lights out. Blue-blue, this is either a cantrip or a Murktide. Oh, a Lorien Revealed. Sure. That's a bit mean. Like, I'm not convinced playing this Narset is a great idea either. So we have access to white mana now. They know we have a Doorkeeper Thrull, but we can stop them being able to interact with it in combat. So if we just take out their black sources, then they won't have access to instant speed removal. And then we can try and block their Bowmasters with our Doorkeeper Thrull whilst they don't have access to black mana. They'll only have that in main phases if their mana situation stays the same. Blue and blue. This feels a little bit Murktide Regent-y, perhaps. There it is. So Doorkeeper Thrull doesn't stop this because it's not a triggered ability. It just enters with those cards. So we don't have a way of interfering with that. See if they attack with the Bowmaster or not. Or is it just the Orc? Okay. Well, here goes the play we have. Let's go to Tundra. Let's make a friend. So they could have some kind of counter spell here. Let's get rid of this. Okay, this unlocks our cantrips. Unless they just go black mana, make another guy. Okay, Beanstalk, pretty good. If we find a land, then we can Narset and try and dig for a plow. We could just make a massive guy. How do I feel about massive guy? Quite like the massive guy. Let's cast the massive guy. Let's cast this Life from the Loam. Let's stop our opponent from having mana on their terms. Like, I am fully aware that this isn't great for us. But sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, right? No island means no Daze. No black source means no instant speed removal, so they can't blow us out in combat or anything. We're working with what we've got. We do need this Narset to find a plow. So we've got 5 looks at a plow, and that'll put us to over a third of our deck. So statistically, we should get there. But that's not how random numbers work. Right, so they have a black source, so they can remove like a Dreadnought or whatever. Pernicious Deed. They do this for 1. So if they do it for 2, it takes out their Beanstalk. Right, they're going to lose their Carpet here. And their Beanstalk. That is a very bold play. If our opponent's got a Force of Will, then sure, we probably just lose. But they put us in a spot where we can do some work. We're not going to dredge Life from the Loam here. We want as many looks at... Oh, this is a lot of looks. This can be multiple cantrips. So I think this is better than the Narset. That's not what we need right now, is it? Put this back. And it's probably the ending for now. We can crack this. We can go and get Tundra. Cast this Brainstorm. No Life from the Loam. There's the plow. 2 plows. Okay. We have a plan. So we're going to keep 2 plows in our hand. I don't think... the Doorkeeper Thrull is okay. It can beat down after all is said and done. We definitely want to keep the Narset. So what are we putting on top? It's probably the Thrull and the Dress Down. So then we will plow this. Round of Daze. Okay. So as long as our opponent doesn't do anything too scary, we can Wasteland lock our opponent here. That deed was pretty aggressive. But I guess that's what they had. So we can slam a Narset with Wasteland and Swords to Plowshares available in the same turn cycle. That feels strong. If we don't want the cards on top of our library, we can dredge them with the Loam, which I think is okay here. Doorkeeper Thrull and Dress Down are both redraws though. We only get... actually, we get the Narset to shuffle them away, don't we? Okay, so this is blue, blue, and 1 here. Right, we're just in with this. This is big news. I think I will take another Swords to Plowshares just to make sure we're covered on that front. And then I'm going to take out the black, because that's Bowmaster's mana. And that can give them multiple threats to pressure our Narset with. Alright, I think we might have stabilised thanks to our opponent's Pernicious Deed, which is not a phrase I was expecting to say. Yeah, our opponent agrees. I think that cracking that deed was a bit aggressive, because they had one attack with the Murktide, and then they had another turn where they could take the hit from the Dreadnought and then see what shook out. And I think you probably wait there. I don't mind putting the deed into play, but I don't think you have to blow it right there and then when you're relying on your carpet so heavily. But we got the win there, and I thought those games were really interesting. And I hope you did too. Let's see if we can have some more interesting ones in round 2. I certainly subscribe to Island Ponder Keep, so here we are. We have a Force of Will if we need it. A Den of the Bugbear, so we're probably looking at some kind of mono-red stompy deck. Chalice of the Void, where X equals 1. How problematic is this for us given our hand? Pretty problematic. I think we're firing this off, and I think it's the Uro that goes here. Murktide Regent is just a massive yacht that they can't really deal with. We do need to go and get our basic island off of this Flooded Strand, that's for sure. And this will allow us to ponder this turn. Wouldn't mind another Force of Will. Dress Down. I like the land. Not too big on the Stifle. It's not without its uses, but I think we're going to do it like this. So winning through Blood Moon is probably easier than winning through Chalice. As long as we have our blue source, we can still make our tasty little dreadnoughts. Not with our hand right now, but we're about to draw into the Dress Down. A Goblin Rabblemaster. Okay. It is acceptable to me. We can plow that guy. Our opponent's got 1 card in hand. We're certainly getting towards being able to dump this Murktide in our opponent's lap. And I don't believe they'll enjoy that very much. So we'll crack this. We're going to go get ourselves a Tundra so we can plow this. And then we have a Ponder that we're firing off, I believe. We want to get more cards in the graveyard for Murktide, make that nice and big. A Daze is the exact sort of thing I want to see here, to be honest. Let's do it this way around. Because that gives us at least some form of protection for what our opponent's doing. We'll plow this. I think that's scarier than anything else they can muster up. On this board, I don't really care about a Broadside Bombardiers that much. A Blood Moon with 1 mana available to pay for Daze. Yep, that's annoying. But like I said, we have Dreadnoughts in our deck, and if we can find them, that will beat what our opponent's doing. We have a Brainstorm that will be locking us, but we don't want to cast it yet because we know the top card of our library from the Ponder last turn. So we want to see as many cards as we can with this Brainstorm, because we are going to be locked underneath it. But as soon as we find a Phyrexian Dreadnought, I think we just crush our opponent. We don't have a second blue source that we can access to put this Murktide into play, so it's a bit unfortunate they had that Blood Moon draw right there and then. And it did feel like that's what they drew. I think you were probably... The way they were sequencing made me feel they play all their prison pieces out first. But maybe I'm wrong. And they just had the Blood Moon and were slow rolling it. But if we fetched a basic island, maybe it would just be the last card because it's not that good if your opponent's got a basic island. You know, a lot to think about. That doesn't really make the most amount of difference here. Right, so our opponent's draw step. Is it something spooky? Or is it just another land? Now, we can take 1 for a few turns, that's not a problem. Alright, nothing there. An Uro. We knew that was on top. Do we Brainstorm now? What difference does it make? None. So let's just fire this off. Okay, I like to see the Ponder. We're definitely not doing anything with an Uro. If we have to draw something, I guess we can draw this Dress Down next turn. Or just draw the Brainstorm next turn, or the Murktide. It doesn't really matter which of those cards. I'd certainly take this Wasteland just as a thing that we can have in play. But we can Ponder and get rid of the cards on top of our library so we're not Brainstorm locked for that long. We just need to find our Dreadnought before our opponent finds a sizable beastie. Really not a fan of that one. Really not a fan of that one. Okay. So we have to draw through this Brainstorm lock. Maybe this little goblin is going to deal us all of our life. And that's just... the life we lead sometimes. Like if this was a Magus rather than Blood Moon, we could Dress Down and turn our Tundra back on for a turn cycle and get this Murktide down. Rabble Master. I don't think we can afford to burn our Dress Down on this Rabble Master. Just to stop it making a token. Maybe we have to stop them next turn. But that's kind of our only real route to victory here. I guess we could draw a... No, we can't even draw a Stifle. We can't actually play We can't play... Dreadnought here, actually, right? We can't play Dreadnought because of Chalice. We don't have any way of answering Chalice in the main deck because we're not running the Prismatic Endings that some decks are. We can't play Murktide Regent with our deck. We can't play Uro with our deck. We don't have any win conditions left, right? We can't play Doorkeeper Thrull either. Yeah? We just cold to these two lock pieces together. Alrighty. I would like to have access to a blue elemental blast and some prismatic endings. I also think Force of Negation is quite handy to stop those problem permanents. What else do we want to cut from our deck though? Daze on the play is okay. It's not incredible, but it's okay. Because there are things we do have to say no to. This isn't really a matchup where you have the most amount of time to be like doing all your Ponder shenanigans. So maybe it's the Ponders that go back here. That leaves us one thing. This isn't really a Life from the Loam matchup either, so we can probably get rid of that. There are situations where you end up like dredging and wastelanding your opponent out. But that's not how we are intending to win this game. This does not have any lands. Let's go to 6. This has our basic and a little bit of interaction. I think we'll keep this. And what are we getting rid of here? It's probably this Stifle. We already have the Dress Down, which is just a better card for that sort of deal. So we're unlikely to get hit by a really scary lock piece on turn 1 because of our Daze. We have Emergency Brainstorm, which can help too. Right, let's play out our Flooded Strand. We can go and find a basic island, which is a given considering our opponent's deck. It is a little bit awkward to try and Prismatic Ending. We can't Prismatic Ending a Blood Moon. That's not a thing we're allowed to do. But we can float mana and plow a Magus. A Chrome Mox. I don't believe this is what we're fighting over. We need to fight over the actual hard pieces if possible. Right, I will crack this in response. I will get this basic island. I will float a blue mana in case we need to Brainstorm if they have a Summon Spirit Guide here. There it is. I'll cast this Brainstorm. Well, well, well. We're going to have to draw through all these cards now. Not a fan of what's happening here. I guess our plan is dress down into Uro. That is a reasonable plan. We don't need this Stifle, and we don't need this Plow, given what our opponent's just done. But we are a few turns away from being able to do this. Our opponent obviously will get to commit some stuff to the board that can really jam us up. We can shuffle away some cards here. We may as well get a Meticulous Archive, since we're not really doing anything else with our mana. An Unlicensed Hearse. Yep, that is an annoying one. But the Uro is not going to be going into our graveyard, in theory, if all goes to plan. So let's go and get the Meticulous Archive. A Stifle. We do not want this. We just shuffle you away. Sure, you can eat some stuff. They're worried about a Murktide. Alright. So the plan is, dress down in their end step, untap, make an Uro, hope that's big and bad enough to win the game. Which it might well be. But if something goes wrong and we have to Brainstorm, then we can do that. Okay, our opponent missed their third land drop, which is really important. They can't Pyroblast anything because of their own Chalice. Daze, not unwelcome when our opponent's missing land drops. Let's just get Uro right in there. This won't draw cards on the way in because of dress down, but it also won't die to its ETB effect. So now we've got a 6/6 that cantrips every turn. That is going to be bigger than most of the things our opponent can muster. However, they can make a pretty large Unlicensed Hearse at some point. Because we've got the cards in our graveyard now that our opponent can just eat them, and then activate, and they'll have a big enough creature. So we are incentivized to stop our opponent putting any more creatures into play. Another Unlicensed Hearse. We don't care about this. It's just creatures that crew the hearse is all we care about. Alright, let's enjoy this additional days that we've found to work with. Tropical Island. Yes, I will put that into play. We can chuck in a Doorkeeper Thrull as well for a little bit of extra damages. It doesn't help us with playing out any Dreadnoughts because there is the Chalice, but we might be able to find a Prismatic Ending, and that can take out the Chalice, and all of a sudden things are looking a bit brighter for us. There's an Ancient Tomb. That is going to unlock some amount of cards from our opponent's hand and possibly make our Daze inoperable. Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Let's play a Doorkeeper Thrull. Let's hardcast a Daze over here. They will pay. And then I will bounce this, getting back our Savannah land. You got another Simon Spirit Guide? I don't think so. They probably would have cast something before if they had it. Alright. That stops them getting a creature that can crew the hearse, which is what we're mostly worried about here. Let's get our Savannah on first. And see if we can surveil. Oh, yes, please. This unlocks an awful lot. Yes, I'd like to put this into play. So then we can go Prismatic Ending on the Chalice. We pay white and blue here. That unlocks our Brainstorm and our Plow. Alright, our opponent has seen the writing on the wall and doesn't want any more of it. That is understandable. Do I want to do anything differently here? I don't believe so. Like, you could debate Ponders versus Brainstorms a fair bit, I think. Because Brainstorm is a card that is best in later turns. Whereas Ponder is a thing on turn 1 where you just want to fire this off and go. So the Brainstorm can fix your hand. The Ponder can shuffle and make sure you don't get locked. So if we're expecting turn 1 Chalice, am I supposed to keep Ponders in over Brainstorms so we don't get locked underneath a Blood Moon as easily? Let's try it. I'm not sure if that's right. It doesn't feel super right, but we're going to try it instead. If you don't try stuff out, you never learn, right? Brainstorm is obviously a more powerful Magic the Gathering card. There is no denying that whatsoever. No counterspell on turn 1. A Meticulous Archive is kind of slow. A fetch land would at least give us access to playing underneath Blood Moon to some extent. I do like the ending here, but is this where I need to be? This hand is quite powerful because we can Doorkeeper Thrull if we find a land, but we are relying on the archive to find us that land. I think we need to mulligan into a counterspell for like the big scary thing. Okay, basic land, answer to Chalice. All right, yeah, okay, I can believe this one. We need to keep this source, I think, or we can bid off the Wasteland actually. Wasteland might be a way that we can snipe our way back into this game if something goes wrong for our opponent, but This gives us an answer to Chalice, and we have our basic to play around Blood Moon. Okay. Goblin Bombardiers. Sure, I am happy to blow you up with a plow. There is an argument to ending this Mox, but our opponent might just have another red source, and that could make us feel a bit bad. Okay, so I think we want this Savannah, or we can play this. But if our opponent isn't playing some block pieces, we want to keep this fetch around for brainstorm purposes later. So I think we are just playing the Savannah so we can plow our opponent's creature if that becomes the correct thing to do. At the moment, it looks like the correct thing to do for sure. So in our opponent's beginning of attack step, we would just plow this. We're not too bad against Bombardiers as a general rule. Oh, our opponent doesn't have a red source. Okay. You know what I'm feeling. I'm feeling this Prismatic Ending here on this Chrome Mox. Now, this could be an elaborate bait from our opponent. Or this could be something that just completely breaks the game in our favour. I'm willing to play those odds. Like, our opponent played a City of Traitors. If they had another land, they'd probably play that instead of the city. If they played like an Ancient Tomb here, I don't think I hit the Mox. But the fact they played a City of Traitors, that's usually the last card you want out of your hand, especially when they didn't cast anything with it. And then next turn, we can frontside the Euro. But we're a little ways off the backside in the Euro, unfortunately. Okay, frontside the Euro, no longer a good idea. Understood. We're looking for Dress Down. Prismatic Ending. Now, we could ending this and then frontside the Euro, but I don't think we need to do that. I think I would rather save the ending for something like a Chalice. We can basically kill anything in our opponent's deck apart from Blood Moon with this Prismatic Ending. Maybe they got Fury. Alright. A Shatterskull. They're back with red mana again. A Broadside Bombardiers. So this doesn't actually blow up our creatures that effectively, so I don't hate this. Like, we still need to probably remove it. Phyrexian Dreadnought. I don't want to keep taking damage from this guy. I think we do have to hit this. So we need blue, green, and white mana. We can get a Meticulous Archive and work our way towards a Dress Down. Even a Stifle at this point is playable. A Doorkeeper Thrull is excellent. We just put 24 power into play, or 25 power into play, and say, how do you like those apples? If they had a Chalice, I think they would have played it by now. They could obviously draw off the top still. But I think the way we lose this game is if our opponent has a bunch of pressure in play, and we just can't deploy anything quick enough. Fail the Breaker is very, very strong here. Oh, the Cowardly not attacking with the Hearse. Maybe they're playing around a Plow. But why would we use a Prismatic Ending on their guy if we had a Plow? A Wasteland. We can take out their only red source. Actually, that's not true. We can't. I think we just put this into our graveyard, right? That's not what this game is about. This game is about finding one of our enablers. Would I like to throw one of these up? I think I would. We'll leave up Meticulous Archive. This is going to get eaten by the Hearse, but I want the card draw here. And 3 life is not nothing either. We can put in this Wasteland, I suppose. So now we're cutting our opponent off of raw mana, potentially, with this. I don't hate that. It does give them access to making their Unlicensed Hearse larger, but it's already eating well. If we take out the Ancient Tomb, they might struggle to cast spells. Alright, I'm going to take out the Ancient Tomb. They will have 3 mana, but that'll include the Fable of the Breaker token. They're going to eat our Uro at end step and probably one of the Wastelands. It doesn't really matter which one because we're already going to not have life from the Loam in our deck at this point. So we just wanted into 3 life and the redraw of the Uro. I don't really want to just throw the second one into the bin. But if we get in a situation where we have to, then fair enough, we have to. But it buys us another turn and gets us deeper. Alright, so now the Uro doesn't do anything. It pitches to Force of Will, I suppose. Alright. A Misty Rainforest. That does not do anything here. Where's the point of playing it out? Is there a point? I don't think so. We can still Brainstorm and have more cards to put back. Shuffling... Oh no, we brought it in Ponders instead of the Brainstorms actually, didn't we? So there is no point keeping this Misty Rainforest in hand. So next turn our opponent will start copying this Shaman token. But I imagine we're getting hit by the Unlicensed Hearse and we're going to take like a 2-turn clock here probably. I haven't counted it, but okay, that's a 7/7. Yeah, that's a 2-turn clock. Okay, so we need to find a Dress Down right now. The little Doorkeeper Thrull doesn't do it anymore. another threat. Just in case they didn't have enough. So they can copy that next turn as well. I don't think we're winning this one, I'm afraid. Certainly not with that. GG's opponents. Yeah, we just bricked on stuff for too long. That is unfortunate. Maybe we're supposed to board out all of our Uros, but we saw how Dress Down into Uro was a really powerful way to win this. We just couldn't find any of our neighbours for a bunch of turns. Stifle was quite far down. Yeah, no, that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Let's go to round 3. We're 1-1. Alright, I'll keep this hand. We've got an island and a ponder. What more could you ask for? Maybe a Phyrexian Dreadnought, but we've already got half of our combo, so we just need to find the other half. We're a little bit shields down without any interaction, but we can find some. That's what ponder does best. There you go, some interaction. Didn't even need the ponder for it. Let's have a looky with our ponder. I was going to say the Wasteland is okay here, but the ponder is the one I wanted, and when I was trying to move the window, I clicked it. So we're going to shuffle these anyway. I do like Wasteland with... No, I think we're going to shuffle here. We're looking for Dreadnought, really. Like, we don't know if Wasteland's going to be good here anyway. We just want to have access to our game plan at this point. We need to look for some other things. We got Brainstorm for that if we need any of those specific things. An undercity sewers. So we could be looking at some sort of blue-black rescaminator. Or we could be looking at one of the combo decks that runs it, like the Beseech Storm deck. Goryo's Vengeance. Alright, our opponent is on some spooky stuff over there. A Brainstorm. Goryo's Vengeance into the bin is not really where they want that Goryo's Vengeance. Obviously, you know, they wanted it there more than they did on top of their library. That's why they milled it. That probably means they have reanimation spells already. What they're missing is an enabler, like an Entomb or a Careful Study type effect. So we need to try and keep those out of here. We could cast a Brainstorm and try and find a fetch. Or we could hold up this Dress Down. I quite like holding up the Dress Down. I think I'll play the Trop. Because if for some reason they have Wastelands in their deck, we can at least fight around that. By having our white source not in play right now. Are we going to see an Entomb? We did not see an Entomb. Right, we've got a staring contest over here. A Wasteland. If our opponent's not doing anything with this mana, maybe our plan should just be to do this. So the Wasteland makes our Dazes better as well. Which is not to be underestimated. If our opponent starts missing lands, we can start Loaming. Right, they're cracking a Bloodstone Mire. They've got another... They do not have another Stifle land, or they don't want to fetch one. Considering their deck looks quite combo-y with Goryo's Vengeance, so we're looking at sort of Tin Fins adjacent, it means that they're unlikely to have that many Stifle lands because they want their stuff to come in untapped because they're trying to combo. Right, they missed on that turn as well. You know what I'm about to do. Oh, Force of Will is a great draw here. I would very much like to Life from the Loam. Get out of here, Underground Sea. You are not wanted. An Entomb. Alright, I think we will fight this Entomb. Pitching. This is a tougher choice. Do you want the Brainstorm or the Dress Down? I think the Dress Down kind of plays here, and we already have something going on with our Loam. Okay, I'm glad they didn't have a Daze to then save their spell. I'll pop our Graveyard out here. I would like to keep dredging life from the Loam. Makes me happy. We still have 2 Dazes. The more we Wasteland, the better our Dazes are. They're not going to crack this Bloodstone Mire, so we don't need to dredge our Wasteland this turn. We could dredge it and try and hit an Uro. I think we're just going to take a regular card here. Got cantrips. Alright, I don't mind playing a white source here. Gives us access to Plow. We've got a lot of layers of interaction. We will not dredge again. A Ponder. So this is the sort of thing we've been drawing regular cards in order to find. A Murktide Regent is A-OK with me. I think we can... I also want the Force of Will. So let's just put them this way around. So play this. Cast this. I will leave in the Life from the Loam though. Let's just make a 7/7. We've got double Daze and Plow. Which is a 3-turn clock. Right, we've got some action from our opponent. Do they have basics in their deck? They do. Do they have... They have a Dark Ritual here. That's a really annoying one. I think we have to counterspell this. Because we've choked our opponent on mana. And we don't get to continue choking them underneath the Dark Ritual. That can just be bait, but we do have another Daze, and we've got a Force of Will on top of our library. I think just making sure our opponent doesn't get to do anything. No, we don't want to dredge that because we know there's a Force of Will on top of our library. Let's play this that they know about. Let's crash for 7. We've got a Daze and we've got a Force of Will. And we've got potentially the Dress Down if we think that's important. I will cast this Daze here. I'll just hard cast this. Our hand has been pretty good for this matchup, if I'm being honest. Also, our opponent's hand seemed a bit slow. Like, that first Entomb they fired off was quite late in the day. They haven't found any discard yet, which I have to assume is in their deck. Another basic. Good to know that they have 2 of those. And they'll probably be fetching them quite aggressively in future games. So this can be a Meticulous Archive. I think it's worth playing this out. We don't have any, like, Mystic Sanctuary to grow our Murktide here. Not that we could grow it enough. So we have Hardcast Force of Will, or we have Force of Will pitching Dress Down. Alright, our opponents had enough. I do not blame them. That was pretty good for us. I would very much like to have some Unlicensed Hearses and some Surgical Extractions. I think this is also a matchup where Force of Negation and Veil of Summer are likely to shine. We kind of need to keep in all of our counter magic. Are we playing a Dreadnought game, is the question. Do we need to play a Dreadnought game? Or can we just try and win off of these other things? Stifle can randomly stifle like an Atraxa trigger and stuff, so I do like Stifle here. Uro, like this, I don't think this is a life from the Loam matchup, so even though it looked alright there, I don't think it's where I want to be, so that's an easy enough cut. Do we have time to be pondering and brainstorming our way to stuff in a matchup like this? We kind of just need to have our stuff. I do like having like the extra ability to do stuff here. I think Doorkeeper Thrull is actively good here. I think Dress Down is good here. Maybe it's the Uro that goes. Like, that's kind of slow for this sort of matchup. That leaves us with 3 cuts if we want to bring in all of this. We're definitely keeping our Murktides because we just need a big thing to shut the door with. Maybe we can trim on some Wastelands. I don't mind trimming a Wasteland. Yes, Wasteland looked good in that matchup for a while, but our opponent's going to fetch differently. And there's also going to be the case that they're just trying to win quickly rather than being ground out. Are we cutting another Wasteland? I don't think so. Like, it's still nice to have, but what else are we cutting? On the draw, we can cut a Daze, but we do need counter spells. So it's a case of Dress Down versus Stifle. Stifle's cheaper. Dress Down, cantrip. I think we'll trim a Stifle here. We could trim a Plow, because if our opponent gets a creature into play, they're probably winning anyway. But they might pivot into like fair creatures, like Doughty Voidwalker and stuff. Do I want a hand that just has Force of Will, nothing else? Like, it gets us through a turn, but then what? I think we can do better than this. Is this better? It has a plan. Like, are we going to get turn 1? If we get in turn 1, this hand doesn't do anything. I think I will keep this. It has a cohesive game plan. Like, yes, we can get bopped on turn 1, but our opponent shouldn't be sending it turn 1 unless they have protection. If they have protection, we lose anyway. Relying on our opponent thinking we're keeping a hand. Look at that. I think this one gets us a Tundra here. And I do think we are casting this Ponder rather than holding up the Veil just this turn. Our opponent had discard. I think they would have sent it turn 1. This gives us options for things like... So they could just Dark Ritual, Entomb, Reanimate. Entomb, do something else. Entomb, Shallow Grave, because that's an instant, or Glorious Vengeance. And that would give them like a Grizzlebrand, and they could draw 14. And then, you know, that should win them the game on their turn. But we get to ponder now looking for a piece of graveyard hate. We do have to worry about potential show and tell. It's a very real thing that exists. Let's get our ponder going. Surgical Extraction is the exact sort of card that I'm looking for. Also, the power of keeping a ponder as well is pretty scary for our opponent. A Lotus Petal, sure. A Dark Ritual. We'll pause on this for a sec, make them think that we have a counter spell, and then we'll pass. A Cabal Ritual. Yep. It's going to take them up to 4 mana, 5 including this Lotus Petal, so we could be looking at a Beseech. If we surgically extract here, we take the Dark Ritual. That's probably not how they win in this game. So I think we just have to let the Thoughtseize hit, sadly. And hope that maybe we can beat what comes out the other end of this. Seems unlikely, given Tin Fins tends to be a get you dead in 1 turn type thing. It can Tendrils you out, or it can just put, like, 22 power of hasty creatures into play. Because sometimes I'm an Emrakul, and you can bring it back with, like, Glorious Vengeance with its shuffling trigger in the stack. So I'm not really liking our chances here. Right, they took the extraction as expected, but they thought on it for quite a while. Oh, a Doomsday pivot, you say? But we have Doorkeeper Thrull. So they could probably do a Doomsday line that involves putting some other big monster into play. If they didn't take the Doorkeeper Thrull, they might just be able to win this turn as well, using that Lotus Petal. The Doomsday pivot's pretty cool. Alright, our opponent's cycling an Age of Autumn straight up, so I think we are just losing the game right now. Shelldock Isle. Hideaway land. Okay. Oh, they're giving us a turn, so we can ponder into a Wasteland and maybe cut this out from our opponent. Like, this Doorkeeper Thrull isn't going to work. We know that, because why would they have kept it? We pondered last turn. We know the top card of our library already, right? But if we play a land, we don't get to look for the Wasteland. Okay, so we are just pondering here. This is any order and shuffle. Not feeling like we're going to win this one. I'm pretty sure there's just an Emrakul under there, and they're going to cast an Emrakul, and then they're going to give us the business. Now, if they have, like, tricked us and they have an Oracle under there and we could have won with Doorkeeper Thrull, sure. But why would they have taken the Surgical Extraction? Right? There's no sense for that. And the Emrakul fits nicely into the just general Tin Fins deck anyway. Yeah, so there it is. I don't believe we can win. Alright. Some cool stuff over there, and I kind of want the Wasteland back in now. And I'm less into these Veil of Summers than I thought it would be. Also, Daze looks a little bit better on the play, so we'll have that. Do we want the Stifle now? Our opponent's shown us some good Stifle stuff. We don't know if they're going to be on the Graveyard plan or not, which is kind of awkward. But we can probably trim on a Plow, at the very least. Narset's good against the Doomsday half of the deck, but does cost 3 mana, which can sometimes be a bit of an ask. Alright, let's get rid of these Plows and just assume that we're going to be dead to their thing if they have it. It's interesting they pivoted into a Shelldock Island, but I guess they could pivot into whatever they want as the time was right. This hand has a lot of answers for our opponent, but doesn't have a way of winning the game just yet. I think I will keep this. I like the fact that we have half a ponder built into our deck via the, what's it called? Mystic. I can't remember what it's called now. The blue-white surveil land that we're going to go find. Meticulous Archive. There we go. We got there in the end. So that is a thing that we can do, and it's basically worth half a ponder. But it's just built into our land, so it's quite nice. So we can hopefully use that to find a land. We've got 2 Force of Wills and some Graveyard Hate. We should be good against both halves of their deck here. A Street Wraith. Okay. They've definitely still got the Doomsday package in. But have they got the Graveyard package in as well? Pluto Delta being cracked. That is an island. That is a Lotus Petal. That is a ponder. That's not our fight here. We need to fight over the big scary bit. Whether it's putting a big monster into the graveyard or Doomsday, and that's where we need to pick our battle. It chose not to shuffle off that ponder. Let's have a look in our Meticulous Archive. I don't think our opponent's going to be messing with our lands at all, considering they're sort of 2 combo decks stapled together. They don't have room for anything to mess with our lands. So Regent go into the graveyard. Not a land. Love to draw a land here. I'll take a cantrip though. We did not find one. Alright. Our opponent knows we're going to be shields up if we just got a full grip of 7 spells. I'm more than happy to Daze here. Reset our Meticulous Archive. Put some more cards in our graveyard for Murktide when we do find that second blue source. No play from our opponent there. A Narset Parter of Veils. It is a blue card. And it is good against what our opponent's doing. If we play on our end step, we at least might get to fire off the Surgical. They're kept on top. We have to make a choice now. I think the Unlicensed Terrace is the least good card here, as weird as that is. We want to keep lots of blue cards. And Narset is very good against the Doomsday side, and Surgical is very good against the Graveyard side, so we kind of trying to cover both of our bases. Maybe we're just supposed to say our counter spells can deal with the Doomsday side, and then just keep all the Graveyard Hate. Uncertain. Because I would like to play this Murktide Regent. If we have to fire for a bunch of Force of Wills, we draw a blue source, all of a sudden we get a Murktide in, then our opponent's like on a 2-turn clock maybe. A Thought Seize here. That's kind of interesting. Would I like to trade one form as Lotus Petal? I think that is a reasonable thing to do here. We only have one piece of like Graveyard Hate, so protecting this is important, I think. If they want to lose their Lotus Petal, we're at least getting a 1-for-1 trade with this Daze. which is fine. The scariest Dazes are often the ones where your opponent can pay for them, right? It's like, oh no, what do they have? Why are they making me pay? Alright, they're going to let this mana burn off. They're going to try something in the second main phase. Alright, they didn't do anything here. Good. I don't think we're wastelanding here. We want to represent Daze, and we want to also get deeper into our deck. Another Daze. It is a counterspell. It goes well with our Wasteland, if we're about that life. We put it into the graveyard, because we're kind of looking for another blue source. Having more interaction isn't the worst thing in the world. We already have a land for next turn. I think we'll put it in the graveyard. I wouldn't fault somebody if they wanted to keep that. But we have 2 Force of Wills and a Surgical. We have some tools. We need to actually try and win the game, because if we just let this game kind of trundle on for a long time, our opponent will eventually assemble the correct collection of cards that will just beat whatever we do. That's the thing about combo decks. You have to actually pressure them or hard lock them. So you can certainly hard lock some decks with enough prison pieces. But usually those prison pieces involve like Athalia, which is going to put a clock on them as well. But for a deck like ours that's relying on interaction on the stack, we need to have a win condition at some point. Otherwise our opponent will just beast us down. Okay, so we're not fighting over this with our force. A Doomsday. I'd very much like to say no to this one. I think we pitched the dress down here. The next pitch is harder. Alright, so this is a Daze. We're not going to pay for this one. So we do want to counterspell this. We can't play this Narset right now. So I think we're just trying to pitch it off. And then maybe our Surgical can mess their pile up if this does get cannoned. Alright. So now our plan is draw a blue source, mess up their pile, play a Murktide Regent, win game. Our Wasteland might be able to do something if we have to go down that route. But like I said, this is a perfect example of our opponent just having enough time to get their hand together in a way that beats whatever we got going on. Okay, Doomsday is up and running. No lines like Diamond. No Lindor's Hot build. So the Wasteland might end up being useful here. If we play a Shelldog Isle, we can Surgical in response and shuffle. Okay, they're going to Surveil here. Put 1 card on top of their library. Alrighty. A Brainstorm. I do like a Brainstorm. I think we're casting the Brainstorm here. Dress Down is not an unhelpful card. Second Dress Down certainly is. This Murktide is no longer doing anything for us. I think we put the Dress Down on top is fine. Alright, let's see what is in our opponent's... actually, let's play this Wasteland up first. So we have Daze mana to pay around a Daze. Let's see what's in our opponent's pile and shuffle it. Okay, so in their hand, they have Emrakul, the Eon's Torn, and Cavern of Souls. So they've got Oracle, Edge of Autumn, Street Wraith, Cavern. So we can't take them off the Oracle this turn. So we need this pile to shuffle and then to not draw. If they draw an Edge of Autumn, they can make the Thassa's Oracle. If they draw a Street Wraith, wait, if they draw Edge of Autumn into Edge of Autumn, they can still, into Street Wraith, they can still find the Thassa's Oracle. Huh. To have Thassa's Oracle on top, that doesn't win it for them, because they have too many cards in their library. So we need them to draw a Thassa's Oracle this turn, and then we can win. They have 2 Oracles, we have 2 Dress Downs. We just need them to draw the Oracle this turn. Oh, yes. And we know that they have no counter spells available, so we have won this game. Can they play 2 Thassa's Oracles in return? Yes. Does it matter? No, because we have the Dress Down. Again, we're not firing these off. We're just going to play them in response. We have all the information about our opponent's deck. They can't draw enough cards to discard an Emrakul either. The power of our cards that are just trying to enable our thing also being splash damage for other people is really showing right now. Alright. Edge of Autumn is being used. We're going to see a Thassa's Oracle here. They might be playing around Plow, but it doesn't matter either way. We know all of their things. All your secrets are exposed to me. Let's get dressing down. So they know that they can't win this turn, but they're going to try and win next turn. And we're going to do the exact same thing with Force of Negation back up. Not that there's anything they can do. Right, we'll pass. We don't need to do anything here. Our opponent's going to deck. There's the cavern. Here it comes. And another one. Alright, we got the match. I'm kind of surprised they went for the pivot because, like, the Sheldock Isle is a thing that we can Wasteland. We've already shown them Wastelands. And the Thassa's Oracle is a thing that's actively bad against the thing that goes with the other half of our deck. So, not really sure they wanted that for game 3. Alright, let's go to round 4. We are 2-1. Right, we're on the play. We can make a turn 2 Dreadnought if you want to. Or we can make a turn 3 Dreadnought using the dress down. But we can play around with the Stifle. I like this. Stifle's a nice little wrinkle in a lot of people's plans. Alright, it's our opponent's turn. An Underground Sea deck. Alright. A Doorkeeper Thrull. That can do some interesting things against Underground Sea decks. Entomb. Entomb is a bit... I don't like this very much. Let's cast this Entomb. We'll bounce the Tundra here. I guess we'll just play this Doorkeeper Thrull out now. This can stop some of the scarier things that a deck with Entombs in can do anyway. So Arcana Cruelty won't trigger. And stuff like that. And then we can untap, play a Tundra, have a Stifle available. I would rather keep up a guaranteed blue source here. So I am going to play this Dreadnought. Decks with Entomb are unlikely to have much removal. They might have Dazes and things. Petty Theft. Not enjoying where this is going. Let's Brainstorm. We've got Daze here as well. Okay, we'll put back... what are we going to put back here? We want to have the Euro on top, I think. Oh, we want the tropical. We want the tropical island and the Euro as an option to cast next turn, which means we're putting 2 cards back. We want to be able to Force of Will here. Is this game about the Euro? Uncertain. This is a tough one to put back. Maybe we'll put back the Trop and the Euro. Let's counterspell this Petty Theft. We still have Force of Will available if we need it. Right, a Daze can resolve. Force of Will or Stifle. Which of these is more... Dress Down or Stifle. Which of these is more important? I think I like the cheap mana cost of Stifle. But the cantrip of Dress Down is so good. Alright. We will keep the Dress Down around. Oh wow, our opponent's got a Force of Will as well. Yikes. Alright. We've lost a game. Although our opponent's hand might not do anything for a few turns. They might just be relying on this Brazen Borrower to do stuff. We can just Doorkeeper Thrull into Uro. That was a lot of interaction exchanged. But it came out pretty favourably for our opponent in the wash. They know we have this Doorkeeper Thrull though. I don't expect our opponent's got much in the way of removal outside of the Borrower. They might have a second Borrower. Alright. How do I feel about this? I think I will deploy a Doorkeeper Thrull before we lose our white mana. That seems like a sensible thing to do. So now we have a Trop. We can dress down if we need to at some point. I'm not opposed to just dress downing an end step to try and get some more land to just cast this Uro. Cycling a Troll of Khazad-dûm. Sure. Because like the Doorkeeper Thrull has a lot of the dress down stuff covered as well. A Wasteland. Do I want to draw an extra card here? I think I probably do. A Plow. Okay. That could be useful down the line. Our opponent's had a pretty good run of cards here. But we're the one with something still in play. Okay, we've still got nothing going on just yet. Opponent doesn't have a Murktide. Otherwise they would have put it into play last turn. They're going to play the Brazen Borrower to start attacking with, I assume. I think at this point I'm happy to trade the Thrull for the Borrower. That's why we made the attack. Just a 4 mana 3/2. Sure. So the Borrower should be attacking here. If it wasn't flashed into block, it's going to be attacking. Ponder. I would like to cast a Ponder, please. Misty Rainforest is actively helpful here. I think we want a Savannah. Are we attacking here? I think so. I don't think we want to lose our Doorkeeper Thrull. I'd rather take out the Grief or the Borrower. Yikes. What are you doing to me, opponent? Is it the Grief or the Borrower? We can always trade with the Borrower if we need to, so I think we take out the Grief. Yeah, there's triple Wasteland, and it's really jammed me right up. I love doing it to other people though, so I can't really complain. Yep, 3 to our chops there. Another Doorkeeper Thrull. I think we attack this turn. Next turn we can consider blocking, depending on what we draw. Our opponent's not going to have a lot of reach, and the Doorkeeper Thrull is going to stop some of the scarier things our opponent can do. Alright, so hard-cast Force of Will is potentially available for our opponent. We've drawn a Wasteland. That is not nothing. Do you think we still attack here? I think we're blocking. If we can get our opponent below a certain threshold so we can just one-hit them with a big Dreadnought, that might be useful. Have they got a Surveil land here? They do. We keep this on top, or are they going to mill it? They mill the Polluted Delta, sure. Orcish Bowmasters. This is kind of annoying. We can stop this from doing as much damage, but I think we're just going to... Actually, no, it doesn't do any damage at all, right? It's just a 2-mana 1/1, right? Because of the Doorkeeper Thrull. Yeah, we're still going to use this Dress Down to try and draw a card in the end step. See if we can find Big Daddy Dreadnought, or even a green source just to cast a Euro is reasonable here. That is not the green source that we were looking for, or the Dreadnought. The Force of Will is not the one either. I think we just have to make a very similar play next turn. Now we have to trade with the Borrower, I think. Why was it 3 Wastelands? Why can it just be 2? Petty Theft. We can't allow this. Is it more important to have an Uro here, or to have the Dress Down? I quite like the ability to dress down and into something when we're looking for lands here. So I think we are going to pitch the Uro. Yep, we're blocking here. Not a massive fan of what that does for us, but it's better than being dead. I think we do have to try and find a land. Alright, that is part of the equation. Another land. Alright, so we can flash in our Doorkeeper Thrull and try and weasel our opponent out here. So we had a choice of playing around Daze or Force of Will here, and we chose to play around Daze. Let's get a Tundra. Let's try and put a Doorkeeper Thrull into play. So we could have Wasteland in the main steps. They couldn't hardcast Force of Will. Alright, they had the Force. Like I said, we had 2 options. We picked one. It went wrong. Because I was thinking, what would they still have in hand? This does not feel like where I want to be right now. We play this. We just die. I guess we pass. So if we'd have played around that Force of Will, we might have been okay here. But our opponent really has had all the things this game. Like, we've had reasonable draws as well. We got a little bit cramped on lands, and that's going to happen from time to time. But we can't feel bad about losing to our opponent's draw here. It's pretty solid. And Orcish Bowmasters. Let's brainstorm. Let's concede. Yeah. I think we're a little bit unfortunate to lose that one. We've got some nice tools here. So I like the Hearse, the Veils, and the Surgicals. The endings are nice if our opponent is doing some sort of like pivot plan into more Bowmasters and stuff like that. So I do kind of like having these sorts of things. I'm not big into Force of Will here. It feels like essential, but it's just so bad if they've got like Grease and things which are just jamming you up. And we have removal for big guys. Doing something really wild. Like I like Uro in this matchup as well. I quite like the Life from the Loam. I think our general plan here is pretty solid. Something's got to give though if we want to have these things. So what is that going to be? We're looking at Trimming Ponders. Maybe. We could try something like this. Because we want to be holding up Veil of Summer on turn 1 if possible anyway. I prefer the Dazes to the Forces here because we have the prospect of lots of 2-for-1s. And like our opponent smashing into us and discarding us a bunch of Grease. Well, we're not going to get Wastelanded if we keep this hand. But what are we going to do with it? We have very specific tools. I don't feel great about this hand. It loses to quite a few things. But I hate mulliganing against the scam deck. It just feels like you're giving up the goodies. Let's play a Flooded Strand. This gives us flexibility. Ideally, we just don't crack it at all. But if we play out Tundra, our opponent has an option of maybe just Wastelanding on turn 1. And then we get in a situation of, are we stifling that Wasteland? Alright, our opponent has a Grief here. They're pitching 2 cards to do so. We can just snap off a Force of Will, a Plow here, and just say no to this guy. Our opponent should crack in response here. And they do. Feels like our opponent has a Daze. We want to hit this on the first way through if we're going to be hitting it anyway. Like the top 10% draws of Scam decks are basically unbeatable. So we need to just try and avoid those as it stands. We didn't get dazed. Do I like this dress down? Feels like our opponent is onto something over there. I think I'm going to play this Trop. Feels like our opponent is going to be entombing if they didn't care about that. That little guy. No entomb. Troll of Khazad-dûm. That's not too bad. Certainly one of the less egregious threats they could be doing things with. A reanimate. I don't think I want to dress down into this. We don't have that many counter spells anymore. Plan around this more revolves around like... Yeah, sure, let's just draw that turn late. Okay. What have we got on top with the Meticulous Archive? We need to answer the onboard problem here. Let's play the car. A turn late. But it stops future shenanigans. Alright, they got a Daze for it as well. Yeah, I think we're just going to get absolutely bopped here by the best deck in the format on some really hot draws. It's going to be hard work to beat. Wasteland, they can take out our green source. We don't care. We've got a load of lands. It's kind of why we kept his hand in some respects. We're immune to that aspect of their deck. Need to find some answers. Deck. What are you doing to me? We'll play this one out. The absolute savagery of just showing us 2 graveyard pieces the turn after our opponent does graveyard shenanigans. It feels bad. So we could dress down at end step and try and spike a Dreadnought. I think we have to do that. A Doorkeeper Thrull. That does things. How good are those things remains to be seen. Okay, we don't get to block with our Doorkeeper Thrull because his dress down's going away. If we've got Bowmasters, we lose. We didn't get Bowmastered. Schedule Extraction is now an unplayable Magic the Gathering card. A Dalthy Voidwalker. I would like to cast this Doorkeeper Thrull first. Because if there's a fight, I don't want this stuff going into the void. Do I want to daze my opponent? Is that worth... So the Meticulous Archive... What does it actually do here if we bounce this? Nothing, really. So we take 6 here. We need to find some kind of magical super good card that probably isn't in our deck. I guess a Brainstorm doesn't hurt. We could Brainstorm into double plow. That becomes very difficult now given what just happened to our mana base. Well, that's kind of one of the things we needed. We can't afford to crack a fetch, so we are just brainstorming away here. That doesn't do it. Yeah, there's nothing we can do against a deck that's that strong and is drawing that hot. Like, we had a lot of stuff, like the triple Wasteland. Like, we could have beaten 2 Wastelands, I think, relatively easily. But the third one was absolutely backbreaking. Also, there was that exchange of counter magic that was awful. And then there was this one where we draw our graveyard hate the turn after they put their threat into play. It's just things lining up horribly, and that is Magic sometimes. All right, we're 4 rounds in. We are 2-2, so let's see if we can have a positive record. All right, I have the final round. Has some amount of protection, and we can make a turn 2 dress down into Dreadnought with some counter spells along the way. That feels pretty solid to me. We can possibly Meticulous Archive off of this Misty Rainforest, but we'll decide that when the time comes. Whether or not we're dodging Wastelands, we'll see. We'll also have to work out if there's a matchup where we want access to double Force or Force Daze. Alright. Den of the Bugbear, Chrome Mox. So you've seen how this match can go. It's a little bit knife edgy, so hopefully we can be on the right side of that. Chalice of the Void. We cannot really beat this. This is the choice we have to make now. We could pitch a Daze and try and if we draw a blue card, then we have a Force. We can keep the Daze and just have a guaranteed answer, but that becomes a little bit slow. I think we will just force pitching Force though. Just play with what we have. Right, we did not draw a blue card, so our play ended up being correct. We'll play this out because we definitely want to get ourselves a basic island if possible. Since Blood Moons are possibly in our future, but our hand is reasonable against Blood Moon. Trinisphere. How do I feel about Trinisphere? That's kind of an annoying one, but if we Daze here, we set ourselves back. But if we don't Daze, what are we doing? Trying to Wasteland our opponent? Our opponent plays better under Trinity than we do. I would not like to see a Seaman Spirit Guide here. We did not see a Seaman Spirit Guide. That could have been a disaster. So now I have to decide if we're Wastelanding here or something else. I think, given the fact that we have the Brainstorm, I'm more inclined to play this and work towards our dress down line. Because we do have an emergency Brainstorm, we can go, oh no, something bad's happening. Let's see if we can find a Daze or a Force or whatever. If something's just going to end the game. Ancient Tombs. That's why we wanted to counter the Trinity. If we tried playing the Wasteland game, our opponent would have 4 mana this turn and be able to continue playing. Broadside Bombardiers. This is not a thing I care about that much. We've got some better plays coming up. I think for the sake of mana efficiency, I will Brainstorm end of turn here. Because we've already got our turns locked in. I do like the Murktide as well. How important are these Wastelands? Potentially important. I think we'll put these back like this. We're going to draw them all before long anyway. So there is an argument to prioritising getting the Murktide, but we can't play it now anyway. So I think the correct play here is play the Wasteland, dress down in our opponent's end step, untap, make Dreadnought, possibly fire off 2 Wastelands, and then follow up with Murktide Regent the turn after. Magus of the Moon. Okay, does that change things? Possibly. So we fire off this dress down now. So our lands are going to be fine again. Does that mean we're supposed to use this turn to try and play this Murktide Regent or not? I think we just play the Dreadnought. It's so big. We don't really care about this. Do we want to just smash out a bunch of our opponent's lands and put a Phyrexian Dreadnought into play? That seems reasonable to me. Wait, what? These aren't doing the thing. Okay, layers is confusing. I thought because this came in after this, but this is obviously in a higher layer. The mysteries of layers in Magic the Gathering are something to behold. Alright, we're just going to do the thing we have, which is play a giant Dreadnought. So, Broadside Bombardiers can throw some stuff at us and do some real damage. So, they can attack us for 2 for this turn, and then a bunch next turn. Yeah, this Fable's pretty good. Gives them more food to throw next turn. So they're attacking with just the Bombardiers. I have to imagine the Chromox is going at our face here. That seems a bit reckless if you don't. Yeah. That puts us to 10. We're not winning if we're not attacking. Swords to Plowshares. Haven't shown our opponent white mana yet, so let's attack. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's lethal if we don't attack. But if we block here, they throw this at our faces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That puts us to 1. Yeah, I guess we can't attack here. That feels terrible. I feel we're just on the slight wrong edge of this knife edge. They did not shuffle any of... They did not discard any of their cards. That's pretty scary. So what they can do here is just attack with the Bombardiers on its own. And that is really annoying. How do we beat this? Drawing a dress down would be a start, wouldn't it? Simian Spirit Guide. Just good old-fashioned Simian Spirit. This is going to get struck to our head for 5 damage right now. There it is. Yes, if we attacked, we would have died. This way we forced our opponent into doing a lighter attack. But it's still not good for us. A Phyrexian Dreadnought. What do we get for playing that? We can attack and block, but we still die. I guess we attack and see if our opponent makes a mistake. And block with their Magus. They're not going to block their Magus. They're going to take 12 and go to 6 and then win the game. Alright, we can concede this one. That was annoying and unfortunate. But, c'est la vie. Okay, it's Force of Negations we want. Prismatic Endings we want. The Blue Blast. These are the things we want. What is no good? So we like Uro on turn 3. Daze feels like it's not really doing a lot of work against our opponent's deck with loads of additional mana. And if we're casting Ponders and stuff, that's not really going to get us where we need to be, is it? The Dazes are okay on the play, I guess. But I think we could board out Wasteland and keep in the Ponder. We could board out Wasteland and keep in a Daze. I think we're just going to roll like this, though. Do we have the time for these ponders? Would I rather have 3 Dazes instead of these 3 ponders? No, I don't think so. That's a tough call. Oh, Life from the Loam needs to go, actually. So, the Miser's Daze. Or maybe that should be a ponder. Alright. Keep a ponder because that way you can ponder for a hard counter. Because as we saw in the previous one, sometimes you Daze and they Spirit Guide and you lose the game. This hand does not spark a huge amount of joy in me. I think we're going to mulligan this one. Okay, we can Island Ponder. That can certainly do a little bit of work for us. And then we're going to throw away one of the Doorkeeper Thrulls. Because the Dress Down does a similar thing. But we can cast it underneath the Blood Moon. We don't have any counter magic here. But we get to see up to 4 more cards. Let's go and get our basic island. Cast Ponder. Well, well, well. I've got some friends here. I think we definitely want this Dreadnought, but we don't need it right now. Put the Stifle into our hand. Next turn, we dress down into the Dreadnought, and then we Tundra. So Tundra bottom, then Dreadnought, then Stifle. We have a plan. Make a turn 3 large creature. Is this a Chalice of the Void? That's very good against our plan. Right, and we'll pass the turn. A Den of the Bugbear. Quite a lot of our hand doesn't do anything. Fable of the Mirrorbreaker. Artifacts and creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger. Well, they're not playing either of those things. I guess we play this out now while we've still got white mana. It can attack. It's not nothing when they've got an Ancient Tomb over there ticking away. So we're going to draw a Tundra this turn. We don't get to Brainstorm or anything because of the Chalice. We can cycle a Dress Down looking for a little bit of help. We need like Prismatic Ending, stuff like that. If we had a Murktide, then we could start firing these 1-drops into the Abyss to power out a large friend. But we don't have that. Maybe this matchup is worse than I thought. I felt like we were just sort of on the edge of it all the time. But we always seem to be on the losing edge. So, small sample size of data. But maybe it is just an awkward one. Chalice for 1 is surprisingly good against our deck. And we're really feeling the cost of having the Murktides rather than additional copies of Prismatic Ending. A Rabble Master. We could dress this down to draw a card. To stop them gaining treasure and all sorts. I think this is acceptable. We've already got our like piece with the Doorkeeper Thrull. So we can always make our Dreadnought if we can find a way of removing this Rabble Master. We don't need the dress down for that. Sorry, if we can find a way of getting rid of the Chalice on the Rabble Master. This can Meticulous Archive, but that stops us getting green mana for Uro. Did we board out the Euros here? I don't believe we did, because they're pretty handy here. We did not, so I think one of the ways that we can win this game is by having our Uro in play. So I guess we just pass. We don't get to do anything looking at our hand anyway. But we can eat one of their 1/1 goblins. But we need to find something soon, or we're going to be pressing the concede button. Oh, they've just cast something into their own Chalice. I'll take that. We need all the help we can get, so I will definitely take that one. I'm not sure it's going to matter here, but maybe it does. Alright, 1/1 goblin. Let me block you. So we take 6 here, and next time they can probably kill us by copying their guy. It's just like a Blood Moon for good measure. A Trinisphere. Does that change what we're doing? No, I don't believe it does. The plan remains as it ever was. Murktide Regent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we do have to crack this Misty Rainforest, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, we do have to crack this Misty Rainforest. So we'll go and get ourselves... We could get the Meticulous Archive here, but I think we want the Trop, because if we do somehow survive this turn... this costs more because of Trinisphere. Okay. Just a little Murktide to tide us over. I do not feel like I'm going to be the winner. Stopping their Rabble Master. That's not a thing we get to do anything about. There's more. Yikes. This is too much. So we block this, we take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we also have the 2 little goblins, 10, 11. Yeah, we are just done here. Chalice of the Void absolutely rocked our world. So he finished with a 2-3. let's just talk right about the deck because I've got some thoughts. So I did, at the start, I was very big on this Murktide Regent being a good plan. However, we actively saw how having the Murktide Regents rather than having 4 copies of Prismatic Ending in your deck really left us cold to these mono red prison decks. And they, they bopped us twice. Because Channels to the Void is a big deal, and then when they follow it up with a Blood Moon effect, all of a sudden you can't cast your Prismatic Endings either. So that felt pretty awkward. And we are a lot colder to Channels to the Void than I thought we would be. I thought the Murktide would help that, but it wasn't really the case. Arguably, we could put another island in the sideboard to cast Murktide Regent, or we could put a Plains in the sideboard, and that might help in those matchups quite a bit. That's a nice trick that I quite like, but having more Prismatic Endings would definitely help there. We definitely had a struggle with some of the matchups there. But I do like this deck. I think the BANT Dreadnought deck is very strong. We saw how the Murktide Regent was great in some matchups and just giving us this big threat our opponent couldn't really handle. Well, we all know what Murktide Regent does, right? So no need to say why it's good. But we're putting cards in our graveyard, casting cantrips, doing that sort of thing. I'm not surprised to see a lot of these decks 5-0ing. There are some awkward things about this deck, though. Like, we are an A+B, and that can go wrong for us. If they disrupt one of the pieces, like that scam deck that just had it all. That's exactly what they did in one of the games. But I do like how Swords to Plowshares is a very good answer against some of the things that Scam does. Sure, you spend your entire hand reanimating, putting this big thing into play. If we draw a Plow, we just get to cancel that out and we get to play Magic fairly. And if your opponent's stripping all your resources, Uro is a great way to build back up again and just win a game. So I do like that it's got 4 Uro in this deck. That makes a lot of sense to me. It does feel like the Mono Red matchup needs a little bit of help. And Mono Red is quite popular at the moment as well, now that all the people who were playing Goblins are playing this instead. So I think there is some room for tweaking here, but I do like what is here. And who doesn't love playing Dreadnought? I think when I first started playing Legacy, Phyrexian Dreadnought was like the best deck in Legacy, like Dreadstill. We were playing this, Standstill, Stifle, that sort of jazz. That deck was really, really strong back in the day, which tells you how long I've been playing this game for. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this one. People seem to love Phyrexian Dreadnought, so I hope I've done you proud. Alright, remember to like and subscribe. It really does help the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low-cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month, as well as regular articles, and lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.